Yeah.
You know?
I'm really interested to talk about this high school glow up that you had because I could not relate more to something. I know that you've mentioned in the past you were kind of like insecure and unnoticed, and then going into sophomore year of high school, you had this glow up. Can you talk to me about that time of your life?
I was like really underdeveloped.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I was like really skinny. I like didn't hit puberty until like a lot later, and I was like super nerdy. I had like glasses and like, you know, I was like, yeah, I was just like a geek. And then, you know, I hit puberty and like I came back and all of a sudden I had like huge tits and like, you know, I got contacts and like I also kind of like that was where I sort of entered my like I kind of entered my villain era like when I was like 15 where I was like tired of being nerdy and geeky and I was like fuck you guys, like I actually have really cool interests and I hang out with adults, like which is not good. That's like a whole other separate bad thing, but
We'll
like
get there.
yeah, but I felt very like, you know, I felt very like emboldened by that and it was just like at school like I don't know, like my coping mechanism of like not getting along with the kids I went to school with or not like really fitting in and having a friend group was by telling myself it didn't matter because I had like cooler, more interesting friends and people I knew, most of whom were just like online, like didn't really hang out with them in real life. And I was like, you know, we're talking about like, you know, intellectual things and like whatever else. But yeah, I definitely, I feel like everything really changed really fast for me. And I went from someone who was like, who looked like a nerdy 10-year-old when I was 15 to like someone who was getting like tons of unwanted like sexual attention. And I was like, what the fuck?
How did having like, because I experienced a similar thing of like overnight going through puberty and being like, no, like the same guy that's like bullying the fucking shit out of me is now like wanting to like take me on a date. And I'm like, hold on, pause, you fucking piece of shit. Like nothing changed except my looks. And yet now you're into me. Like how did that impact the way that you like felt about yourself?
I think it did in like a lot of different ways. The first was I had to like differentiate, you know, between what attention was like kindness and what wasn't, because my first instinct is I was like, oh, people are being really nice to me now, and I just missed the agenda completely. And like that was really hard to navigate because I didn't have a lot of experience with that, and it took me a long time to learn like if someone is like giving you that kind of attention, you're not obligated to return it. But I was really afraid of like making people mad or making people not like me, and like, you know, on like the simplest level, it's like a guy will be like an asshole to you if you are kind of if you reject him. And then on the worst version of it, there's violence. You know what I mean? So it was kind of like I had to learn how to navigate like I am not obligated to concede or to give in to the sexual pursuit of me just because it's happening.
But it's hard because when you go from not experiencing any of it that like a lot of your peers are experiencing and then all of a sudden all this validation comes, like I remember when that happened to me, I felt at first so excited, like kind of like you're talking about, there's that like excitement of validation, but underneath it, I think when I was alone, I had some like anger because I was like, what, like is it, it's so surface level, like I've been the same person the whole time, but you guys like didn't give me any fucking attention until I had tits and an ass, and like
that's when you have to start doing the would you have been nice to me before, and if the answer is no, then bye.
It's really confusing. You said once that you thought your sexiness was a superpower, kind of like we're talking about, and made it so no one could hurt you, and you would enter these rooms just like
for sure,
feeling that confidence.
Yeah, I definitely wielded sexual power as like a, you know, I don't know, like as a tool of acquisition, you know, like I definitely used it in certain circumstances because it was kind of all that I had.
Can you give me an example?
Well, like, you know, if you're in a room full of people, especially men, you know, and in this business, as I was starting my business and I was learning how to navigate the industry, it's not just like I write songs and like, oh, I have to build a business. You know, you're in a room full of people who are more experienced than you, they're older than you, they're richer than you, they're very often men, white men, you know, and at the time I I started out by trying to be like, look how smart I am and look how much I know. And it was kind of like, okay. And I was like, well, that's not working.
Yep.
Okay. And then at a certain time, I think in the beginning, I kind of figured out like, I can make all of these like really smart men dumb instantly if I'm just hot, you know? Like, it's so crazy how fast they become stupid. Like, they have so much power over you in the moment where you're like, oh, the experience, the money, the power, the whatever. And then you have this one little magic trick in your pocket where you can just be like, really? And all of a sudden that guy is like,
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, God, that was so easy. Right. It's like, why wouldn't you use it if you have it then?
And I think so many people can relate to this. Like, I do think, yes, like women can relate to using that part of us that is so sexualized.
Yeah.
And leaning into it, you can feel this like great energy from it. And it's like
until it feels gross though. Until it gets gross.
And it feels gross pretty fast, I feel like. Yeah. And I think like a lot of conversation I always see online, like I know Emily Ratajkowski has like talked a lot about it of like there's this weird fucking thing where you can use it to an advantage, but then you also have to like have some ability to like navigate for yourself what you're comfortable with and what you're not comfortable with.
Yeah.
Like when do you think, if you have like a memory that you were like, oh, I'm taking it too far, this actually is like I'm not feeling chill about this?
I mean, there's been like a couple times. There's definitely like some times where like I was like out with like some collaborators and it was like late and like someone was just like, we were kind of like playfully flirting in a way that was like seemed really harmless.
Yeah.
And then they got like really drunk and they just started kind of like touching me like in public and I was like, whoa. But at the time, it's like, and I was younger then, but it was like, you don't want to cause a scene. You don't want to like, there's other people there. You don't want them to see you freak out and then they don't want to work with you because they think you're a drama queen and like whatever else. And these are all, like I said, younger minded belief systems of mine that have obviously since changed now that I'm older, but like it was those kind of things where I was like, this is not worth it, it's becoming unsafe and I don't want I don't want this to seem like I'm signing some sort of invisible contract where I'm promising something to someone.
And I think the concept of like being a young person in a situation where there's a power dynamic, like it's such this like hard thing to explain until you're in those situations where you referenced it earlier of like, I didn't want to make this person upset and I didn't want it to escalate where it could literally get to the point where it goes like violent. So you kind of just like appease the situation. And I think that is where it can get really scary and you keep just like, we just can appease people and like make it be like, oh no, everything's fine. And it's like, but then you go home and you feel like gross and shitty.
Yeah, you take that with you. I had like a really strange situation a couple years ago. I mean, I guess it was quite a long time ago. But I was out and I was with this executive, like this really powerful executive who works in music in some capacity. And I'd been going out and like hanging out with him and like some other people at the company and like we were working together and like everything was like really fine. Like it was very just like celebratory and like there was a lot of like industry talk. I didn't feel weird about it at all. And I like had like my two managers with me who were kind of like older guys and like I never felt like unsafe or anything. We were out one night and like he was like, oh, like I want to send a photo to like my niece of us together or something like that. And I was like, okay. And I like took out my phone. I took like a selfie of the two of us and I handed him my phone and I was like, text it to yourself. I have to pee. And then I went to the bathroom and when I came back, he like handed me my phone like this and I saw he was like going through my nudes on my phone.
What is wrong with people?
And I like sat down and I was like, I actually didn't even know what to do. I was just like frozen. I was like, did I just imagine that? Was that an accident? Like, did the phone like scroll up? Like what the heck just happened? And then I was like, did he text them to himself and then delete the messages? Like, I don't even know where these are now. Like, I was just like, I was like frozen. And I was like, that's so crazy that like I'm in this situation where like I have so much power. I have a bodyguard. Like I have a I have a bodyguard, and I have, you know, all the leverage in the world, and I'm in this like exclusive space in this like VIP, like, you know, I've reached the ranks of like, oh, I am protected or like whatever else it may be, and then this invasive thing just happens like on a whim, and I was like, oh my God, it made me feel, I felt like it regressed me so much. Like, it made me feel, I went from being like, yeah, I'm like fucking hot shit and I'm one of the big players. And like, and then I sat down, and when that happened in that moment, I was like, you're nothing. You're nothing. You'll always be nothing. You're still just like that fucking girl who's like getting, you know, taken advantage of, or like men are talking about you behind your back, or you're some sort of like collateral. I was like, you're nothing. It was so demoralizing.
It's so...
And so many worse things have happened to me than that, but that one stuck out for some reason because it was so nonchalant. Right. No, that,
like, that's what I think. It's so, I appreciate you sharing the details, even of like, you're where you at, you're in your career, you have a fucking bodyguard. And it's like, I think, and you technically, like, we revert to that like little child of like men ruling the world and us just having to appease them, like we were just talking about. And you in that moment, like, no, of course. And people would be like, why didn't you just say something? It's like, you don't get it until you're fucking in those moments where it's like, there is kind of nothing to say, but even if you said something, then you're the crazy bitch that it's like, oh, and then someone calls you a slut, because then what do you mean? What are you talking about? Your nudes? You take nude? Like, they can turn it so fucking fast on you.
Also, it's like, are you like a bad bitch businesswoman? That's the other thing is like, at what point, you know, where is the line between like, I am a powerful woman, so I have to stand up to myself, and the line between that and I'm a powerful woman, so I have to not let certain things bother me so that I can outplay these men in the long game. There's so much to think about in that moment. You know what I mean? It's like, am I going to let this bother me? This like pathetic, squirmy little worm action of this man, when like I could just let it go and then I'll get the last laugh because I'm building my business and I'm looking out for my life and whatever. Or like, do I have a responsibility as a woman in a position of power to stand up for myself in that moment? I don't know which is what is expected of me.
I don't think anyone in your position or anyone really in those moments knows what to do, even like the highest of powered people. Like, and I think that's why this is a really interesting conversation, because it's like, you're so fucking right. Had you said something and made a scene, then you're just like, oh, she's like the crazy bitch. Like, no one work with her anymore. She like makes stuff up, and she like uses her like sexual being parts of herself as like a way to like get people in trouble. We don't touch her anymore. Like, no
she's
one go
like
near.
a black widow. She'll flirt with you, and then she'll like screw over
your life
later. I'm like, whoa, okay.
And men don't have that experience where they're never being like overly sexualized in those moments. So like, can't relate, gotta go. Ew, she's crazy, bitch.
Yeah, get off of me. Whatever, totally.
It's not only is it the best interview because you're fabulous, it's also like, I have been wanting to have these type of conversations with someone that gets it and can talk about it, but also is not like above it, where you're like, you are in it and you've experienced it. And I think so many young people are gonna be like, fuck, thank you for just talking about something that we don't have the answer to any of this.
No, also that's the thing. People look to us and they're like, so what do you do in those situations? Because they're like, oh, thank you for sharing. So what's the solution? And you're like, I don't know. I'm still figuring that out.
I don't know.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm still figuring out so many things. Like, even now, like, you know, like, where are the lines, you know? Like, sometimes it's just like, if someone's being like a little overly friendly, it's hard sometimes to be like, okay, is it like because they're excited to talk to me, or is it because they're like, they don't understand social cues, or like, you know, what is it? Or like, is this worth being like, yo, this chill?
You know?
And
I think I had a situation that happened to me this past year, and I feel like odd because my show, you would expect me to immediately like run and sit in front of the camera and talk about it for all of the young people listening to me. I'm still trying to figure out like how to talk about that situation, because it is a work situation. And I'm like, I may see this person again. And it's a situation where it's like, wow, like, I don't think anyone would expect me to not say something. And I didn't say something in that moment. And I was so uncomfortable. And it's like, I think the point is two people in seemingly positions of power
Yeah.
are sitting here acknowledging today to young people that experience this. Like, there is no answer, but I do think through a show like this and through your music, like by us just talking about it, writing about it, singing about it, it just starts to like normalize more of the conversation so people don't feel so ashamed to talk to even a fucking friend. You don't have to report something immediately. Like, it doesn't have to go to the highest level. Just like acknowledging it, I feel like is the first step to making some progress.
Absolutely. It's an ongoing conversation. Also, people don't like it when rules change. That's like the other thing is like people also don't like it when you have like nuanced rules. You know, like for example, like I'm topless on my album cover for my fourth record, and it's like my nipple was in Target. Like it's everywhere. But like people sometimes will just like walk into my dressing room and I'll be like, yo, the door. And it's like the expectation is like, what? You showed everyone your tits. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm revoking that right in this moment. Like I'm allowed to decide I don't want you to see me naked right now just because you've seen me naked before. Like I'm allowed to change my mind. Or like someone's like, oh, like, you know, I saw you in this one interview with like this person and you were like so touchy-feely and like so comfortable. It's like, why are you being so standoffish to me? And I'm like, I have a, like, you don't know my relationship with that person separate of that interview, or like, you don't know this, or like, you know, I reserve the right to change what I'm comfortable with, but people don't like that because then they go, oh, she's so wishy-washy. They're always changing their mind. Like, pick one. Like, what is it? And it's like, I'm allowed to change my mind.
Not only are you allowed to change your mind, like there are different boundaries per situations you're in life of like, you may have been having a really rough morning. And so like, I'm not in the mood for this. And like, no matter what the fuck you're in the mood for, that's okay. And people that make you feel uncomfortable or like you're being unreasonable, that is a red fucking flag. Like if something's if someone is constantly coming at you and making you feel like you're over dramatic or you're being high maintenance and you're pause.
Or like you took away the blanket consent that I thought you gave to all of us. And like I wanted that too. And like the reason they're reacting that way is because what they believe you've given them is, you know, with this like hypothetical blanket consent is like they see an opportunity that they want to leverage that for their own personal gain or their own whatever. And when you take it away, they're offended. It's like you've taken something from me and it's access to you.
They feel like ownership over you in a way. Like that example of your nipple being in Target. You made a decision the day of your photo shoot to do something creative and artistic that you were comfortable with that day. That does not mean that everyone in the fucking world when you're walking down the street can be like,
I'm just gonna pull out my
like nipple free for everyone to see. Like it's wild that they like people feel entitled. The entitlement to our bodies and moments, if you, it's crazy. I want to talk about romantic relationships.
Okay.
Because we kind of started about your childhood and I feel like again, what we've been kind of talking about is like they're all fucking connected. Did you tend to fall in love easily when you were younger?
Not when I was younger, actually. When I was younger, like when I was a young adult, definitely. When I was a teenager, not so much. I wasn't like super trusting, you know what I mean? When I think honestly, once I became famous, I think I fell in love faster because I was so desperate for like stability and like partnership, and like I just wanted to be seen and I wanted like a constant. And so, you know, I think that I a lot of the time would sort of project that onto people, like ignored a lot of red flags, like that kind of thing. And like not even like some of them super like insidious red flags, but some of them just like more harmless ones of like we're just not really compatible in that way. You know what I mean?
You have talked about a relationship you had when you were 17. The guy was 24. And he was a pretty big drug addict and was into drugs. What drew you to that person initially?
I'm a fixer. I am a fixer. I'm like, I can fix you. I can fix you. Like, you know, it's funny. I felt like becoming a mom was so natural to me. I struggle with it in the same way that every mom does. But at the end of the day, I think I had so much blanket patience because of how much time I spent trying to like fix and mother people up until that point where like my like patience for someone not growing the way you want them to, or as fast as you want them to, or like whatever was like already so established. Oh my god! But
you're like, I've been a mother way before my child.
Yeah, okay? Seriously,
I've been mothering these men for a long time, Alex. Yeah. No, that makes sense, and I think it's again like interesting to hear you talk about a dynamic that can be like someone struggling so much with an addiction. Like I had a relationship with someone that struggled a lot with addiction, and I was very young, and he was older than me. Yeah, and I remember the power imbalance was like so ever present, and I would feel so insecure, and I would want to like, I think when you're the person that's not in the position of power, you find yourself like doing things to try to like even the playing field. Totally. And really it's like kind of you appeasing them and doing what they want you to do, so you feel closer to them.
Absolutely.
Did you experience that with this relationship?
Yeah, I mean, I dated a lot of addicts. Yep. Like that was a kind of a reoccurring theme for me until I was just like, okay, no, you know. And like I think that, you know, part of the problem, I think, when you're romantically involved with someone who is in active addiction is that there's no logic, right? So you try to reason with them and you try to go like, okay, well, can't you see that if you do this, then it hurts me and then I feel this way? Or like, you did that, I watched you do it. And it's like they live in a completely different reality that they've constructed to, you know, as a survival mechanism, to not think about the fact that they're in active addiction. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's like you're arguing with someone or you're reasoning with someone based on reality, and like that's not their reality. So there's no, you can't like reason with someone who's not living in a world of reason. Right. And then it turns into like this cognitive dissonance, like thought spiral, where you start to feel like you're crazy. You start to go insane because there's no growth. It feels like growth when they're loop. Right. They're not on drugs. So then you're getting closer and you feel like, oh, we're so back. And then it happens again. And then you're like, wait, no. But then the progress that feels like progress, it's just, you're just getting a little bit back to like normal. Totally. It's like, it's a really, really difficult spiral that I like empathize with anyone going through it right now that's listening, of like, you're not crazy. And I do agree that a lot of people in those positions want to fix things. You can't fix someone that's going through that. And I think a lot of times we feel like we can. Yeah. You can't. And I know it's easier said than done, but like once you get out of those moments, you obviously have clarity. But when you're in it, like I just have empathy for like friends going through it or people listening. Like it's fucking hard. And again, there is no solution that we're providing today. I think it's just like talking about the real shit that you go through. I needed someone to tell me at that time, like, you're not a bad person if you leave someone who's like hurting you. You know what I mean? Because like I was always kind of like making excuses for those things and being like, oh, but what kind of person am I if I leave someone who's like in this great of need? And I really needed someone to be like, baby, that is not your responsibility. You know what I mean? Especially because I was just so young. And also I had to unlearn this thing that I was going through at that time, where I was like, I've spent so long in just like misery wanting to fix this person. What if they get better one day and then someone else gets to have the better version of them that I worked so hard to build? And it's like, that is what kept me in it, was being like, well, no, one day like they're gonna get better and then someone else is gonna get to have the version of them that I always dreamed would existed, and all I got was just like the suffering. And then what am I? I'm just like the lesson, I'm the martyr, I'm the catalyst. I exist in their life just so that they could go be better for someone else. Like, and I was like determined to not have that, because it felt like losing. I had to also deconstruct that too, that thing of like winning and losing. I was like, no, baby, this is your life. Yes. This isn't about winning or losing, you know? I don't know, sorry. It was intense. I'm more just like speechless, because I don't think I've ever heard someone like articulate it so perfectly that I can imagine everyone listening right now is like, maybe like pulling over to the side of the road, just like have a pause, because it's so fucking real. Of like most of those relationships, you go to the very possible end, to the point that like you even are at risk of your own life when you go that fucking far down with someone. So to leave feels like, but what was this all for? Yeah. And it's like, it's just gonna keep going. Yeah, it feels like giving up, but it's not. It's like you're making like a, it's like it is a hard choice. I think that I started learning, like, in a way you really do become someone when you're spending that amount of time with them and you're, like, connecting with them on an energetic level that much, where now, like, if I look at my partner and I wouldn't want to be them, if I wouldn't want to be just like them, then, like, I probably shouldn't be with them. Like, you should kind of really only be spending that amount of time and putting that much love and connection and vulnerability into a person if, like, you know, if you would be okay becoming them as a result.
Yeah.
You know?
You're preaching right now. I'm like, keep going. You're giving us a TED Talk.